Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. This is going to be a good one, folks. Teresa Caro is with us. She's a return guest, which means she knows what she's talking about. She's worth having back. She's got a new book out that we're going to talk about that you're really going to want to hear if you're the leader of a team. But before we get to Teresa and her important work, I want to remind you that we are broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank. And if you are tired of the mega bank experience where they really don't want to talk to you live, they want some computer to talk to you. If you're tired of that kind of experience and you want a bank that will deal with you one-on-one and personally, but yet have all the services that you need as a business, Renaissance has that magic combination. And that's not my opinion. That's what people tell me when they come back to me after I've referred them to Renaissance. So go to renaissancebank.com and find one of their local offices, give them a call, be in touch. I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. And now, again, I want to welcome Teresa Caro. Teresa she's the founder of her own firm called Liminist. Teresa, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back.
Glad to have you back. And let's talk, first of all, about Liminist and how you're serving folks there.
I am a executive and teams coach, but I love talking to people about my name because it can be confusing at times.
Yes.
And have you ever heard of the word liminal before?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And maybe your listeners already know it is that between and betwixt, that threshold.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes people, teams, companies get stuck in that liminal state.
Mm-hmm.
So you bring in a specialist. So then you combine the two words, liminal and ist, and you get Liminist, which is me.
I like that. That's not necessarily what people think to begin with because they don't know, but that's actually a good thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It gives me an opportunity to explain who I am, what I do, and the value my organization can bring to another organization.
And for clients to self-identify, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because when they hear that explanation, it's like, yeah, I'm there.
Yeah. Right? I think I'm stuck.
Yeah.
Can you help me get unstuck? Absolutely.
Absolutely. I like that. So, Teresa, you were here before to talk about Liminist and the work you do there. We're here today, although we can talk about Liminist, but we're here today to talk about your new book that you've co-authored along with two other co-authors. We'll let you talk about them in a second. It's called the Purpose Playbook, the definitive guide to building your team's purpose, vision, tenets, and values.
That's correct. Said.
First of all, I've got it written down, so that helps. but secondly, you just released this book.
Yes.
Why this book? What's so important? What's the big, hairy, audacious idea of this book?
Oh, there's so many directions I can go with that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say let's start first with the story behind the book. So that'll help you understand the why. Jeff Hillemeyer, one of my co-authors, is the author of several books in the Turnaround Leadership series, one of which is The Great Team Turnaround, in which I believe that's the book he introduces the PVTV. Purpose, vision, tenets, and values.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a great story. He's a great storyteller, a great visionary, not so great on the details. So what's happening is a lot of people would read his book and go, Jeff, how do we implement it? And they would either hire him to help them implement it, or they would figure it out on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Enter Megan Barney. Megan Barney at the time was a leader of a leading data analytics and technology company. And during her long tenure there, she led several different teams. And she knew the importance of having a unified why. Why are we here? What is our North Star? She knew it was incredibly important that, yes, the organization itself had a purpose and a vision and strategies to get there, yet her team or her teams through the years did not. So she figured out how to take Jeff's vision around purpose, vision, tenets and values. Very simple, because with the brand architecture stuff, we got way overcomplicated. And this is very simple. And she figured out how to implement it with her teams. And so Jeff invited her to join him to write the Purpose Playbook. So they started. Enter me. And as in 2023, I founded Liminist, and I was trying to figure out how to make my executives, my teams, as successful as possible. And I know as a past strategist that brand architectures can become exceedingly complicated and unproductive. So I reached out to Jeff. Jeff and I have worked together in many different capacities. And I said, do you have a PDF or something I can use? And he said, funny you should ask. Yeah. Megan and I are actually writing this book. Do you want to join us? And I said, yes, of course I do. So the three of us got together to write this book. So that's a little bit of the history on the book. That's
a great story. So everyone brings, as with all co-authored or co-produced works, everyone brings something to the table that the other two don't really have in abundance, shall we say, right? So you all have something to bring to the table that's unique to you.
Yes. Yes, we did. So Jeff is a great visionary. And as I mentioned, not so great on the details. And he would be the first to admit that. Megan has the real world experience of implementing this across several teams. And then I have the experience of actually coaching teams and coaching them to success. I also have decades of strategy experience too. So each of us brought a unique perspective, great storytelling, great strategic insight, how to know if a team is ready, whether or not they're ready for the Purpose Playbook, and then the hands-on actual materials to implement it, because some of us on the team are a little bit more detail-oriented than others.
I want to get to, it seems like an odd question, but I think you addressed it early on in the book, is that those that should not use the book, right? And you've got some caveats about that I think are important, right? Yes. Because there's a tendency people have to like, I'm just going to buy the book and we'll use that to be our guide, and we don't really have to hire Teresa or whatever, right? We can do it ourselves. And the book is meant for that, but it's also, there's a cautionary tale about those that should not use it.
Absolutely. So one of the questions that you love to ask people is, who is this for? And we wrote it intending for leaders and their teams. It could be brand new companies. It could be 30-year-old companies. If you take a look at the reviews, there's actually people who are using it for themselves, entrepreneurs. So not even teams. They're using it really to center themselves. So that was a nice surprise. Yeah. The cautionary tale, and we have a whole section. So you have the story, the continuation of Jeff's story, and then you have the intro before you get to that middle part that's indicated by a facilitator's guide and worksheets. Before you get there, we have a whole section of how do you know you're ready? And there's a whole bunch of different checklist kind of items. The story that we like to tell is, as we were testing the Purpose Playbook, we discovered if the team has some kind of dysfunction or behavioral issues, or don't even know how to have a good constructive conflict kind of conversation, or don't know how to hold each other accountable for business specific, maybe hold themselves accountable for their individual objectives, but when you're coming together as a team, maybe can't hold each other accountable for that.
Right.
So Jeff and Megan and I realized, oh, yikes, this isn't going to work. What do we need to introduce before that? You will see in the book, we mentioned Patrick Lencioni and the 5 dysfunctions of the team, and we encourage people to read that book. And then I went as far as become an authorized partner. So Patrick Lencioni, an author, got together with his publisher, Wiley, and they created the 5 behaviors. And I am now an authorized partner of that program. And so what we realized is you need to teach people first, how do you trust one another? How do you have a good conflict conversation? How do you commit to that decision, hold each other accountable so you can then generate results? And that takes a bit, depending on the team. Sometimes changes need to be made to the team itself.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's practice because there might be 15 years of other kinds of things going on that we need to overcome.
Right.
And so that takes a bit. I've worked with teams where we've worked on that first for about a year before we tackle the Purpose Playbook.
Mm-hmm.
And even when we do get into the Purpose Playbook, sometimes we actually take a pause and go back and say, okay, before we get to the tenants, which most people know as strategies, how do we go back and remember how to hold each other accountable so we're not creating tenants that aren't reasonable, that we can't actually achieve?
Teresa Caro is with us, folks. Her firm is Liminist, and she's also the co-author of the Purpose Playbook, the definitive guide to building your team's purpose, vision, tenets, and values. Can we talk about that subtitle for a second and just review what I think we know what purpose is, but maybe you need to clear up our misconceptions of that. But purpose, vision, tenets, and values. Let's walk through that real quickly.
Yeah, what a great question, because sometimes the way we define it is different than others. So it's important that we're all on the same page.
Yes.
Purpose is pretty much the same as everybody. What is that why? Why do we exist? Why do we get up in the morning? What is our North Star? It's that thing you want to achieve, but you never quite attain. It's the big, hairy, audacious goal. Mm-hmm. That is your purpose. Mm. Vision for us is a little different than others. Vision is that measurable statement. So what are you specifically going to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years? And how does that ladder up to the purpose? So I actually brought... and I wrote it down.
Okay.
Jeff's going to be disappointed in me because you're supposed to memorize this, but I didn't.
You didn't have to admit that because we weren't going to tell him.
I know, but I just think it's funny.
Okay.
And shout out to Jeff for
Okay.
that. So Liminist's purpose is to create a world where having a transformative mindset is valued over all other skill sets. So that's my purpose. That's why I wake up every day. My vision is very measurable. So I want to make sure I triple my revenue. Mm-hmm. So that's part of my measurable. As leaders' first choice for a prospective transformation, with 65% reaching out for our unique strengths. Mm. So I want people to see me as that person, that company that's going to help transform the mindsets of the employees and the teams. Mm-hmm. And so because I'm known for it now, 65% are actually coming to me. So that's my vision statement. Mm-hmm. Core values are core values. Everybody knows core values. So mine are selfless. So I'm going to do this by being selfless and putting others' successes first, joyful and taking a positive outlook on life and business, forgiving and measurable. And then tenants are strategy statements. So what are those strategic initiatives that you're going to do? Like being known is very much like what we're doing right now.
Sure.
Check. So I've achieved that. Aligning with the right partners. So aligning with Wiley's 5 behaviors, or the publisher of this book, Ripples Media, which is a very purpose-driven book publishing company. So aligning with those partners, those are the tenants.
Mm. Got it. And then values?
Those are the core values.
Okay.
So that's the joy and the measurable and forgiving.
Got it.
In fact, right before I got here, I texted to a group I coach a very joyful podcast, because that's what I want. We have very difficult, challenging conversations, but then we get back to finding joy and happiness in life.
Terrific. Now, let's talk about, we talked about those that the book is not for. Let's talk about those that the book is for. And I guess the question is, how do teams define themselves, and how do they know they're ready for using the Purpose Playbook?
That is a great question, and one we have had many different discussions. From a me perspective, my philosophy around teams is that concept of one team. Your peers that you put together, that's your first team. Even you may be the head of analytics or the head of operations or the head of finance. And yes, you have an obligation to serve those organizations, yet it is your peers that you partner with to to be successful, right? And so that's what's considered your one team, your first team. To me, that's where the Purpose Playbook should begin. Now, others, Jeff is actually, he's a very purpose-driven kind of person. In fact, owns a company called the Purpose Group, where he invests in companies, runs the Purpose Playbook, because he believes if you have a purpose-driven organization that follows all these things, they can be hugely successful. And so he actually ran it for the first company purchased. About 80 people participated in that one. Whereas I like to start at the top. Forget it. Let's go nuts. Let's implement it across the whole organization all at once. And we've both seen great success in both areas.
That's actually interesting, because I guess the question is, other than just having a conversation with you or Jeff or what have you, if I'm the leader of a team, how do I know that it needs to start with me versus, hey, let's just unleash it on the team?
And ultimately, it does need to start with you. So if you think about Megan and the several different, one of her teams, she was leading a team of 50 people, and she implemented it across. When you are looking, if it's one of us coming in, we are looking at the leader first and the people that the leader counts on. So when you say, how do you know you're ready? We're going through our checklist to make sure that they are empowered to actually do this, that they will live it once they do it and hold others around them accountable. There's a whole list. For you to pick up the book and say, how do I know that I can run the book on my own? Really is a self-reflection of yourself, of are you ready to hold people accountable to the point that if people do not fulfill the precepts of what you defined, then you're going to have to make some tough decisions. And that's really hard. A lot of people avoid that decision. They go, oh, it's okay. Or, oh, this is, no, at the end of the day, you have to be ready to make some tough decisions in order to make sure that this is fully successful.
Yeah, for sure. Now, how do I, as a leader of a team, let the process unfold the way it needs to unfold without me maybe unduly influencing it?
Wow, that can be a whole podcast.
I knew that was a loaded one when I asked it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So again, that's why I love, before we even do the Purpose Playbook, I love taking a few steps before we do that. One is there's a particular assessment that I like to use called PXT Select. It has 3 dimensions: our learning styles, our behaviors, our interests, and who are even the people showing up at the table, and how do they like to communicate? How do they like to learn? How do they like to approach challenges? Having that data is the number one priority. Then teaching them how to have the conversation. It is amazing how many organizations don't know how to have a constructive conflict conversation to make sure that everyone feels heard, that everyone has clarity, and that everyone buys in. Because we're fond of saying you can't get consensus. There's no such thing as consensus. You will never move forward with consensus. But you can get buy-in and commitment as long as everyone feels heard. That's difficult. That's not just a whole bunch of people talking in a room, because going back to your point, you might have a bit of a dominant voice. And if you pay attention, after a couple hours, you notice there are 3 or 4 people speaking and the rest in the room are quiet. Yeah. There's tools and techniques you can use to make sure that everybody maybe doesn't have a literal voice, but there are methods in which they can then feel heard, get the clarity they need, so then everybody can get to buy in and move forward.
Yeah, and I want to take it to the other extreme. So we talked about the strong leader, but what about the group itself? And when you want to hear from everyone, but at the same time, sometimes the group size can be a little unwieldy, right? And keep you from being able to do that. So what's the ideal size here? Does that make sense?
It makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
And that's, if you could see my face to your listeners, I'm chuckling because Megan did this with 50 and Jeff did this with 80. And I'm the skeptic. I'm constantly the skeptic. And my point to them was, there's no way that you can do this. I was so excited that they did, because the tools in the book enable us to do it. Now, you don't have 80 people talking at once. You're breaking them into tables. They're doing the exercises at groups. They are presenting back to the team. But it is possible to do it as long as you do all the things that we recommend that you do it. So everyone feels heard, everyone has a voice, and then there are tools and techniques to gain not consensus, but agreement, so then everyone can commit to the decision that was made.
Got it. That's terrific. Teresa Caro is with us, folks. The Purpose Playbook is the name of the book. The subtitle is The Definitive Guide to Building Your Team's Purpose, Vision, Tenants, and Values. Okay, so let's talk about successes. And surely you've got quite a few, it sounds like to me. So let's talk one. We don't have to talk about names, of course, but just give us one that helps illustrate the great work the three of you are doing together.
We all have successes. Jeff can already point to the organizations that he's purchased, and he's already seeing great employee satisfaction scores and increased retention rates. Same thing for Megan's teams at her prior company. For me, one of my favorites, and they actually wrote a review on Amazon, and there's a picture of them using the book. They're all around the table. I love this team. And they are my team that has actually gone through the entire process with me. We started off understanding what they're looking to accomplish as leaders of this 30-plus year organization. We ran the PXT assessments so they could better understand who they were, the types of behaviors they have, how they like to communicate with one another. That also helped with making sure the right people are at the table with the right interests, doing the right things. And then we taught them the 5 behaviors. So we've gone through both at an executive leadership team, and then the next level of future leaders that we're training up have all gone through the 5 behaviors program. So we're all using that common language, which is fun, because then we'll get into certain situations. We're like, all right, do we have clarity? Do we have buy-in? How are we holding each other accountable? So they're starting to use that common language. And then one at a time, we started knocking things out. Purpose and core values, beautiful. And that's an organization that there was an original purpose and core values, and they went through this, and through the process, they realized, no, we want it this way. And everyone, including the owners, are like, that's amazing. We are completely bought in. Let's do it. And so we started off with, we were going to refine the existing purpose and core values that had been with the company, that they had already instituted and permeated the entire organization. And we left with a new one, and that everyone's bought into, and they fully understand what it's going to accomplish. So that's very exciting.
Can I stop you right there? Just say,
course.
I want to underline the excitement around that, because when you, as a leader, are able to let it go and let the process work, and then where you come in alignment into a totally different direction, that in and of itself is amazing. So congratulations on that. But I want to underline, you said excitement. I want to underline it for everybody, because that's pretty cool.
And congratulations goes to them, because they do trust one another. They did have an open, honest conflict conversation. So with them doing it, they were open to the new innovative ideas, which was amazing. Now is the hard part, right? Now is, okay, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for this organization? How do they make it measurable? How do they agree to the strategic initiatives to get there? And this is a service-based organization. It's hard. Clients come first. Client satisfaction comes first. And so it's the cobbler's kid has no shoes kind of thing. Like, that's for any kind of organization where you never know what the client's going to need, and how your schedule is not your own. That is really hard to sit down and figure out what's reasonable. And they're doing it. They already do it for their clients. It's just reminding them that they are their own client too. And they have to, we talk about the airplane and putting your mask on first. So that's been something that they've been working hard to do, is to remember to take care of themselves as well.
Yeah. Wow. Such a great story. And congratulations on that work, not just, of course, to the team that did it, but to you as you led them through that, Teresa. So it brings up a point when you talked about the hard part and fulfilling that 3 to 5 year objective goal or goals that you have as a team. How often do you need to come back to the playbook?
It depends on which aspect of PVTV you're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Core values and purpose, that should be something that sticks.
Mm-hmm.
And you should, so I read you off my different purpose statement and core values. There's an explanation that goes into each one of those that should permeate all aspects of the organization. How you hire, how you coach and mentor your employees, how you review them. It permeates all aspects. So that doesn't really change. I don't know, depending on how fast you're growing, maybe you should revisit it, I don't know, 5-6 years, but just revisit to make sure everybody still gets it.
Right.
When it comes to vision statements, that's a 3 to 5 year statement. So it depending, again, how quickly you're running as an organization, 3 years. So I try to look 3 years out, and then I'll revisit it again to see if it's realistic. My tenants are annual. So, you know, in fact, I looked at my tenants as I was preparing for this. I'm like, no, that's still good. So my tenants are still in alignment with my 3 year vision.
Got it. Okay, cool. So this has been terrific. And I can't imagine that there aren't some folks that don't want to hear more, want to buy the book maybe first, and then maybe get in touch with you. So let's tell them how they can do that.
So there's a few ways. So we're on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. We are not very unique in our names. There are a ton of Purpose Playbooks out there. So you might want to search on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, the Purpose Playbook, and then my name, Teresa Caro, TeresaCaro. You should be able to find it there. It's blue with yellow lettering, and you'll see the definitive guide. So you know you're there. If you do read it and you would like some help on facilitating that discussion, I am there to help you. And you can find me on LinkedIn under Teresa Caro. Again, I'm prolific, and as Sean knows. And then also my website, which doesn't have a lot about Purpose Playbook on there, because again, I haven't put my mask on first, but you will see great ways to learn more about me and Liminist, and that is theliminist.com.
Terrific. Teresa Caro. Teresa is the founder, CEO of Liminist, and she is also the co-author of the Purpose Playbook, the definitive guide to building your team's purpose, vision, tenets, and values. Teresa, thank you so much for your great work and for sharing it with us today. It's been terrific.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder. Speaking of books, I have a book out, and it's for you if you are a solo, small professional services firm and you're having issues around your value, expressing your value, understanding client perceived value. That's different than what you think value is sometimes, almost all the time, actually. And it affects your business development and your pricing. And if those are issues for you, then you need to check out this book because it's written for you. It's called The Generosity Mindset, a journey to business success by raising your confidence, value, and prices. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more and to learn where to buy the book, which is really anywhere where books are sold, and certainly your independent bookstore has it. So you can go right in and order it from them, and they'll be happy to take care of you. Also, I just want to thank you. If you're listening to this show, I want to thank you because you have made this show go beyond, well beyond wherever I thought it was going to go when we started it 8.5 years ago. We're past show number 800. I think this is show number 825 or something like that. And we've only gotten this far because of you. You continue to support us in so many different ways, sharing the show, liking us on social media, sending us great guests. And I'm thankful to you because you help us live into our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond. And we couldn't do it without you. So thank you for your support. So for my guest, Teresa Caro, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.